Brandon?
Oh, we live.
Yeah,
Oh,
we live, brother.
get these Horwell warnings. Hey, welcome to the mothership, yo. What's up? Oh, sorry about that. Hey, it's the WhoDat podcast. How y'all doing? We are live for another episode of the best podcast this side of the Mississippi and the Nile River. We are the bee's knees. You know what I mean? As always, it's your boy B. How you doing? And we have the captain, Paco. He's Paco again.
What's up?
We have Cap Paco. Then we have the light-skinned sensation, Devon.
Back here, baby.
Devon.
Had to move back here. No, bro, you can't be telling people about my alter ego now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Devin.
There you go.
Devin is a college student. And joining us once again today, we are very blessed to have two co-hosts that are as talented and intelligent as they are beautiful. We have the NAACP media department head and Juneteenth organizer who just announced that Juneteenth is still going this year, baby.
Yes, we are back.
Yes. So we have Miss J. Lee, who did a fantastic job yesterday at the protest. Thank you for doing that. Awesome. And we have the uber beautiful, uber entrepreneur who's doing 1,000 things. Just did a radio interview. Jazz, I don't know all the stuff you be doing. You just
shut up. I appreciate you. Thank you guys. It was the We Battle Radio I did. I do a few things. JC, I'm modeling out here.
T-Talks.
T-Talks.
Which is later on the night.
Shea Butter, got you.
The Kiss by Shay. She has her own product. She has her own talk show. She has her own modeling agency. She's a model. She's a host. Just my goodness. But thank you for being here once again.
Thank you
we
for having
had
me.
a very, very good reception from the last episode. And this episode is going to be just as special. I don't want to say even more because that talk we had was very powerful, and a lot of people been hitting me up about it. A lot of people been hitting me up about it. But this episode is going to be just as special because we have a special guest that a lot of people still have to bring into the show here in a little bit. But we will be speaking with Mayor Chaz Molder.
Yes.
The mayor of Columbia, of Murray County, of Tennessee, will be on the show with us. We're gonna do a little informal talk. You know how we do here on the show,
right?
But with everything going on in the nation, and with it being an election year, and with the COVID, there's just a lot of questions that the people in the community have, that we have, and he's been very kind, and we are privileged to have him. He's going to sit down with us, and we're going to talk for about an hour or so, and just pick his mind, see what his background is, how he got to where he is, and we got a lot of questions. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned because we have got messages from you guys and the calls from you guys and all that. And if you have any questions, as always, please type into the comments. If you have any comments yourself, please comment, let us know. But we about to we about to bring him in here in a little bit. And is he already on? Can I see him?
Chaz, can you hear us? Hold on. Okay.
All right.
Hey, give us
I didn't notice
a
what he
thumbs
looked like.
up if you can hear us, Chaz.
Young Thundercat.
No, he just took his headphones out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's trying to fix something. All right. But in the meantime, while we're working on getting Mayor Molder on the screen with us and everything, we want to thank everybody that came out to the protest yesterday.
Yes.
Chaz, if you can hear us, give me a thumbs up. Okay, he can hear us. We cannot hear him. Let's see here.
Does your microphone have across it? Because you could be muted. Trying to figure it out. But while y'all work on it, thank everybody for coming out to the protest. It was a very beautiful, it was a peaceful protest. Started at the square, made its way down to the Riverwalk. It was about 200 plus out there, which was a pleasant and beautiful surprise.
Yeah, very diverse crowd.
Very diverse. It was it really made me feel good to see so many people coming in support of the situations happening, and we had some good speakers. Yes. I walked around burning sage. There was beautiful signs. We're gonna have some videos that we post on the WhoDat page after this podcast. And actually, Mayor Molder had a letter that he sent in because he's out of town right now. But he did have was it the city manager that spoke?
His name was Ernie, so I'm not really sure what his position is.
But they were still very beautiful words.
Give me just a second, Chaz. I'm gonna see. Hold on.
Shout out to Jeremiah Wright,
yes,
thank Wilson, you. Myself. We all came together and
made it happen.
Yeah, really made it happen, and it made history. Really, it was so beautiful to see everybody out there with their signs.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Got him. We got him.
I don't know what you did.
Man, I'm glad I'm so tech savvy over here.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna transition you in here, okay?
All right.
All right. Now, Chaz, with the setup, you'll see we've got a direct camera for you to see us, but the audience sees us from a few different camera angles. So, but okay.
Well, welcome to the show, Mayor Molder. Thank you for being here.
Hey.
Appreciate you.
Right.
Thank you for being here. How you doing?
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
I'm good. I'm just honored to get the invite, ready to talk a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, man. Hey, I'm so glad that you responded. That was just I was just throwing a Hail Mary pass. And you responded quick too. I was surprised.
I'll be on anytime you ask. I promise.
All right. Hold them to that.
All right. That's what's up. Well, we did announce at the protest yesterday, and thank you for sending the letter. Very beautiful words of support and everything. We announced that you will be on the show, and we've had a lot of interested people that are going to be tuning in, and they want to, know more about you and all that. The first thing I want to know real quick though, when is election day? Because we were talking about voting yesterday, but the national voting and local voting are 2 different days, right?
That's right. So generally speaking, local elections occur the first Thursday in August. So there's not a whole lot of local elections on the ballot coming up this August. However, there are some important ones, including the school board and a couple other state legislative races have primaries. But then the state general and federal general election always occurs the first Tuesday in November. So there's still time to register to vote for the November election. In fact, I think there may even be still time to register to vote in time for the August election. Certainly the November election being the big one, because that will be the presidential election, as well as some of the other federal and state legislative races.
All right, thank you. So, because I didn't know, I admittedly would say I've never voted before, so I'm trying to get more into the political process myself. There's just a few things I still gotta learn and figure out. Thank you, Paco. Yeah. I gotta learn and figure out. Real quick, what do you think about the protest that you were you able to see any video footage of the turnout?
I was, and in fact, I basically watched the whole thing. Fortunately, social media, while there are a lot of negative things about social media that we could all talk about, some of the positive things are is it allows you to tune in and see what was happening. I'm out of town right now. My wife and 2 of my 3 kids have birthdays coming up in a couple of days, all within a span of about 3 days. Coming up. About to go broke. Wish I could have been at home. I wish I could have been home, but we do this every year, and so but to watch it, honestly, I mean, I will say this: if there's one word that I could just spit out, it would be inspired. Because we were all sort of wondering about the turnout. I felt like all along it was going to be a large turnout. I thought there'd probably be at least 200, maybe closer to 3. Everything that we've heard in our official count is at least 400, probably a little bit more. And so from what I understand, it was inspirational for everybody who attended. It was peaceful. There were everyone was there in unity for community, and like I said, it just inspires me. It makes me want to get back to town to get to work, so that we don't just have conversations and we don't just let this momentum pass yet again, but instead we start having some really meaningful results, because that's, I think, what people are looking for.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
I totally agree.
Yes. Meaningful results.
What do you think is going to be step one for that meaningful result?
Well, it's funny. Some of my high school friends in Columbia and I, we used to have this saying at Central: "Let's don't talk about it, let's be about it."
Right.
And it's easy to talk, and I know you've probably all said that before, but it's easy to talk. But really, your talk has to be backed up with actions. And so there are a few things that I have in mind. One thing that I want to make sure everyone that's listening knows about is there's a group that was actually formed about 5 years ago, just after the Charleston shootings, the horrific incident in Charleston that was just a really sad day for our entire country. Yeah. And a group in Columbia got together. They call themselves the Stand Together Fellowship Group. It's made up of clergy, African American and white. It's made up of community leaders. Yeah. It's made up of stakeholders. It's made up of people who care. And they have been meeting regularly for the last 5 years, and they've really set a foundation for some things that can be done to start having some progress in the short term. But from my perspective, I'm 36 years old. And so, I feel like I'm representing a little bit of a different generation in elected office. And we're bringing some new perspectives. And I think that when you combine a new generation of leadership in this country that starts locally, when you combine the Stand Together Fellowship Group, when you combine the amount of just people who were there yesterday in downtown Columbia to start a conversation, and then frankly, when you include our history in Columbia, which is not great when it comes to race relations. No. We have the ability to learn from that history. Those who repeat, history are doomed for failure. Mm-hmm. So we can learn from that history. We've got the right people in place. And like I said, I'm just inspired and ready to get to work, because I think Columbia is going to be a community that if we do what I think we can do, we'll be looked to as a trailblazer in this country.
Yeah. I like that.
Yes, I'm glad you're excited about it too, because I think that's what we look for, is our leaders to feel what we feel, and want to do something to make a difference. So,
I do want to ask, because you mentioned 36, and I have this conversation sometimes, because I have a theory that the generation that was raised by Eminem and South Park are going to be different. So, what have you found, like, while being in office, the difference in your perspective based on your age, based on those new ideas? What things have you found is a difference from the past and now?
Well, I think first of all, the further away we get from some of the darker periods of our country with regard to race relations, if you look back to the civil rights era, back to the 50s and 60s, I didn't know that. My parents barely knew that. I was born in 1983. Went to McDowell Elementary School with Thorne Central. My first, hero, and still my hero to this day, happens to be the man who's been featured on The Last Dance for the last few Sundays. That I'm sad is now over, because I'd watch however much of that footage they'd put out. And so I just think that we just represent a new sort of fresh approach, and we know that racism still exists in this country, and we hear it and we see it, but I think it's further removed from the generations that we make up that are on this podcast right now. And so I think maybe that's why I have a little bit of a different perspective, again, being 36 years old, have young children who are seeing these things play out and who are asking me these very poignant, detailed questions about what's going on. And so it's causing me to be very deliberate about those conversations. I want my children to know what's going on. I don't want to hide it from them, because I want them to know what's wrong and what's right. And so I think not only do I have a different perspective, I'm also raising my children in a different perspective, that hopefully each generation is getting better and better.
Yes. I like that.
Okay.
I remember last week one of our biggest things was, and I really like how you said the being proactive, and like when you get back, so let's do some steps, let's figure it out. And like last week we was talking on different things that we could do other than harping on what's happening. How can we be proactive and move forward? And I know, I don't have much, I could say so in the school systems, but when you say you're bringing up kids, and like you said, when they go back to school and everything that has happened, they're going to be a little like, because everybody's household is different. So they're going to go to school, and all those conversations of all those different households are going to come together in one classroom with small children. What do you think would be a good way in a vast, like these classrooms, to bring a cultural, like we had a couple ideas, like diversity. Maybe a cultural diversity, so that way, like how your household, you teaching your children what's right and wrong, but I understand everybody's household isn't like that. But in the school, we have just a little bit more power, I guess, with the teachers. And our idea was just to have a cultural day where my classroom, if I was a teacher, I'd have Africa. If Jaylee was a teacher, she'd have Asia. So that way the kids, they don't have because right now, like I said, education is big, and if they're looking at things for what it is, they might have a stereotypical look on what's happening. But take it all the way back to the roots for that second, to be able to say, this is what Africans do, this is what Europeans do, this is what Asians do, and instead of breaking it down into a color thing, look at it as a cultural thing, and have them be like, oh, Mama, it was really cool, I learned this by Africa today. I know you might not like black people, but man, this is really cool. I like jerk chicken. You know, I learned about, I went to China today, and I learned that, you know, they do these dances, and this is how they do things. So it's just like a way that a lot of adults' cups are full, but the children's aren't, you know. And I feel like with the kids, that will be, for me personally, the first step to be able to break the racism thought, and to have a kid, even if, like I said, they might not have a parent who feels like that, but at least them taking in that day, that cultural day, it was like, well, this was nice. How do you feel about that?
I love that. I think that is awesome. You know, you make a good point. You know, people are not born racist. People acquire the hatred because of their surroundings, because of what they're taught, because of what they know. And really, our children are our best bet for the future of this country. They are the ones that, you know, if we broaden their horizons and let them understand what's right and what's equal and what's justice, then they're going to know. And then the more that they know, the more they're going to pass it on, just like what my wife and I are trying to do, and those who are out there who have children. So I love that idea, because, again, the school system, for me, in my view, that is the most important thing that we can do to change conversations, to change the inequality, to change the wealth and poor divide. Really, so many of our solutions lie in our education system, and that's why I'm such a strong supporter of public education. And you made a good point. You know, the city mayor for the city of Columbia doesn't have a real strong say in the education system, because it's a county education system, and basically the county school board governs it. However, the city of Columbia, by a long shot, contributes the largest population of our school district. We represent the largest population of teachers in the school district by a long shot. And so we certainly have a voice in that, which is why I'm very vocal on public education, which is why I go to schools. Anytime I'm invited, I'm there, whether it's reading a book to a first grade class or speaking to the high school seniors at Central who are about to graduate. I do anything I can to get involved locally in the schools, because I think really that's where we can start to see real results.
Okay, I have a couple questions for you. With that being said, I understand, you know, as a politician, you guys have red tape, and you know, your process to get things achieved may be a little bit longer than what people actually realize. So, what can we do as citizens, as people, where we don't have to jump through the red tape to get things done and assist that goal?
Well, you are making a very good point, because one of the biggest frustrations, quite frankly, I've been in office a little bit over a year, is just the slowness of government. You know, and that's recognizing how slow federal government is, and how slow state government is, and frankly how slow we are locally. It just requires a little bit more red tape than what I like, and that's why I believe that the public at large are the ones that have the ability to truly make change. What you saw yesterday in downtown Columbia, 400 people. I mean, we're a community that has 40,000 people population, maybe about that. 400 people were downtown on a summer Saturday when it was apparently about 95 degrees.
Yeah.
You know, So, that when people picked up their Daily Herald this morning, or when people put on their social media page and saw the crowd of black, white, everything else that was there, their friends, some of the people they didn't know, I mean, that shows those people that change is afoot in Columbia. And so what you didn't realize if you were there yesterday, and particularly the organizers who need a shout out, who I spoke with over the last week and who did a great job, is that they started something yesterday that is going to continue to make shockwaves through coming the next several weeks ahead. But to more directly answer your question, so I don't sound like a politician, Vice Mayor, y'all may know Vice Mayor Krista Martin and I. Krista, a friend of mine. I've known Krista for a long time, and I know she shares this vision. And by the way, heard her remarks yesterday at the rally, and there's no way I could ever compete with her oratory skills and her substance of what she said. We were getting chill bumps as we were listening to it. But I think that when you have people in office who want to see change and who are interested in getting results and not worried about the political consequences, that is where you have sort of the ingredients for success. And let me also say this. If you want to get something changed in the city of Columbia or in Murray County or really in any governmental capacity, all you got to do is show up. Show up and make your voice heard. And that is truly one of the things that I've learned the most since I've been mayor, is those who show up to city council meetings generally get what they ask for. It's those who decide not to show up that are the ones that are left disappointed. So I think that's one way to handle it.
Yeah, and when do you have host those council meetings, and how are the public informed about those meetings?
So one thing Vice Mayor Martin and I set forth earlier last year is we wanted to make just more transparency for city government. And so actually now our city council meetings, which are held on the second Thursday of every month, are now broadcast live on YouTube. So you can go to the City of Columbia Facebook page, like the page, and every Thursday night, the second Thursday night at 5:30, broadcast live. And so that's one way to do it. It used to be you had to actually... but you can also show up to City Hall. We have study sessions the first Thursday, and then City Council meetings the second Thursday. And then the thing about me, and I know the Vice Mayor is the same way, all you got to do is call us or email us, text us, and you're going to hear back from us. And that's, again, ways to be engaged with your City Council, or that's really how you start to see reform.
I like that.
Okay. Now, we're speaking on education for a minute, and we've been... me and Brandon and a few people here involved with the WhoDat podcast, we have been talking about trying to get, and not just educating the children, but maybe getting some sort of adult education programs in place for life skills and stuff like that. We need to facilitate that. I think if we can get our adults, because adults always pass information down to their children, Yes. So I want to try and get together and put in place some adult education programs, maybe some mentor for jobs and trade skills and financial literacy and things like that. Do you think that would be a highly effective method of?
Or do we already have something like that?
I think you need to go ahead and get on the payroll and start promoting that now. I mean, that you just hit every point. That all of those things. Your education doesn't stop when you graduate high school. I'm still learning today, at 36 years old, and there are plenty more things I have to learn. And so to your question, though, I mean, the difficulty is who's going to take the lead there? Who's going to step up to the plate? Is it your religious organizations? Certainly they have opportunities to get better invested if they truly want to live out some of the scripture that we're taught about helping those who can't help themselves or loving your neighbor as yourself. Right. That's where you could start reaching out to do some adult services. But just looking at other nonprofits in town, what are they doing? Are they truly serving the actual need? But education, again, is the key to success and the key to changing the conversation in this country, whether you're talking K through 12, whether you're talking trade school, whether you're talking higher education, or whether you're talking just adult learning.
Right. It was just a second. I apologize. We had a issue with the camera there.
I was even Yeah, while we wait on the camera, so can you still hear us? Or?
Hey, Chaz, can you still hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We cannot see you.
So you've been a year in your seat, a young husband with young children. What was the transition like from, growing up here in Columbia to now being the mayor of Columbia?
Well, I'll say this, graduating from Central in 2001, so I've already told you my age, but now you really know my age. And then, I left for undergrad in law school, coming back. Really, I feel like I was pretty well positioned because I'm from Columbia. I know its people. I'm lifelong friends with folks here. But on the other hand, I was away enough to have some experiences outside of Columbia that I think made me a better person. Then come back and sort of try to implement on that. But it's been tough at times. I still have a day job as a lawyer. I'm not a full-time mayor. So trying to have that balance between family and mayor and law has been tough. But I hope we're doing an okay job. But I'll let y'all be the judge on that.
Well, you can judge yourself too. I mean, what are you proud about so far, being in your seat?
Well, I think I'm proud that I feel like I am representing a larger voice perhaps that's ever been represented before. Because again, I'm bridging a little bit of a generational gap. I'm from here, so I know, my parents' friends and their generation and even the generation older than them. But I'm also, from here in 36, and so my generation, which is such a strong population generation here, and then those who are younger. So again, I feel like the voice that I have is really representative of a large group, and so to see that is probably been one of my favorite things. Also, again, having known Krista Martin since I was a kid playing soccer with her son, and getting to work with her and our city council, which is very united and shares a common vision, has also been a good thing. Obviously, we had a lot of momentum coming into this year that has been put on hold as a result of COVID-19, which we're starting to see some progress and getting further along from that. But we still understand that it's very real here in Columbia and Murray County, and we still have to be very mindful of that. But I really believe that Columbia is well positioned to pick right back up where we left off pre-COVID and begin that momentum, but also build on it. I mean, this situation that we currently have, which unfortunately took George Floyd and a couple other incidents to get it started back, this conversation, we really weren't having a conversation on race relations in Columbia prior to this. And so now we're going to claw back from COVID-19 and continue that momentum, but also continue momentum to make sure that we're working for a Columbia that benefits all of us, not just some of us.
Right. So let me ask you, we're talking about race relations, and, I'm not trying to throw you a curveball here, but with the Confederate Museum opening up here, I mean, right now they're tearing down Confederate statues all over the country, and we just opened up a Confederate museum here
with a lot of those statues.
Yeah, and how do we handle that? And I'm not trying to put you in a bind here. I'm just keeping it real.
No, you're not putting me in a bind at all. I didn't come on the show to have censored questions. So
good deal.
Let me say this: earlier, just a few minutes ago, when we were talking about sort of why I'm so optimistic about Columbia, I talked about the fact that we have a large group of people that seem to be united in the cause. We have what I believe to be the right leadership currently. We have a very young and new generational speaking mayor. You have a vice mayor who's been here for a while, who understands the situation. You have a united city council. You have a bad history regarding race relations, or a history that's not really one to be proud of, with some of the race riots and lynchings that we know about. And again, I think that historical perspective well positions us to be better than that. But I believe that the Confederate Museum also provides an opportunity for us to show that Columbia has a whole lot more going forward, and that we have a whole lot better vision going forward in the future. And a museum is something I've always thought that those busts at the Capitol and the state Capitol and things of that nature belong in a museum. They don't belong in the state Capitol.
Right.
And so now for there to be a museum that's in the city of Columbia, obviously that's their right. It's not something that really I would have chosen for the city of Columbia, but it's here. But in my perspective, I'm not really interested in focusing on the negatives. I'm interested in figuring how to turn that negative a positive. And if that museum can help us figure out to turn that conversation into a positive, then, from my perspective, that's what I want to do.
To turn the lemons into lemonade.
Right, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, let's figure out a way to have our own museum. I mean, I think there's some opportunities in the city of Columbia to have a civil rights museum that highlights the bad history and those things, but also that shows what the city of Columbia is doing to erase that and to again be a trailblazer in this conversation. I mean, Columbia, there's no reason that the city of Columbia cannot be looked at in the next 6 months, 12 months or beyond and say, man, that community got it. That community understood what the conversation was and how to see real action and real reform. One thing I will also say, though, I don't know the answers. What I do know is that I know that there are people out there that know how to get to that answer. And so I think that, if you have somebody that just thinks that they know the answer and they have the solution, that's probably not the right approach.
Right.
But just to make sure that you bring in the most amount of people and, y'all, your group right now, I guarantee you that there are some conversations. If we could have a huge, conference call, everybody's talking, I mean, we could probably come up with 3 or 4 items on a task list to check off going forward that would have a positive outcome.
Yes.
Well, I like the way you think because we have those items on the task list.
We did that last week.
You know what? You know how to find me. So, I mean, again, and that's going to be what it takes. I mean, you said it jokingly, but seriously, until we can show that we've checked some things off the list, then it's just going to be another, we had a conversation and we had thoughts and prayers for the family, and, there's nothing to back that up on, and I'm just not interested in talking some game. I'm interested in being able to look back and say, man, we did something special in Columbia, and if not now, then when?
I liked how when Brandon said he reached out to you, reached back to him with the quickness. With everything going on today, I say it repeatedly, the only reason why the things have gotten so violent is because we're trying to get someone to listen. Our voices have gone so unheard, but with after last week's conversation, we was like, well, let's just focus on the community. So when these things happen in the community, how open is your door? I know a lot of people, like with your position, just so happened we talk to a lot of different people of authority and of higher status. So the conversations are a little bit easier. But a lot of people would see you, Mr. Molder, and be like, I don't even know how to say hello. So something might have happened bad to one of their cousins or their uncles, and they just like, I want justice for this, or I need somebody to talk to who's older than me, who can actually get something done. But how can I actually sit down and talk to them other than maybe Facebook, like Brandon found you? I don't know how Brandon found you, but Facebook. How open is the door to be able to have a conversation with you?
Well, again, my door is not cracked. It's not slightly open, but it is pretty wide open. And, hopefully my actions speak louder than my words. Again, I recognize it's easy for me to sit here on a computer screen and tell y'all my door's always open. Don't let me just say that. Why don't you force me to prove it? And I'm pretty sure I'll prove it. Obviously, I wish that I could, answer every email within a few minutes of getting it. I'm not as quick on that as I'd like to, but generally speaking, if you send me some form of message through some sort of social media platform or email or call, you're going to hear back from me. And whether or not it's hearing back in a way like this on a computer screen or seeing you at City Hall, my door is always going to be open. And again, all I can really say is let me prove it to you if you don't believe me. But I do think, too, in addition to my door being open, we've got to find ways at the City of Columbia to be more proactive. Yeah. In other words, I like what's going on. I like what I'm hearing. I like the organization. But those are things we're sort of reacting to, Right. I reacted to the fact that there was a protest going on Saturday and I couldn't be there, and and it is what it is. But why not be a little proactive on something? Maybe there's some things that we can do, some initiatives that we can take that allows us to be the ones to sort of come to your door. Instead of you worrying about my door being open, let me see if your door is going to be open. So when I come to ask you to do something, are you going to do it? That sort of cuts both ways.
Yeah.
For example, y'all mentioned knowing when to vote. Let me just tell you, you got to be voting. If you expect my door to be open when you call me, then I'm going to be expecting you to be casting your vote at the ballot box.
Right.
Okay, that's an example where you're exercising some civic responsibility that I'm going to ask you if you're doing that when you're coming to me and asking me to do something. So there you go. There's a challenge right there. I like that. I came up with that like that. So we're gonna make sure next time I talk to you, I want to make sure you've registered to vote. But seriously, I do think I take it for granted that people might think that I might, turn the other way or something, but that's just not me. So if you see me out on the street, I had my first. By the way, I had my first post-quarantine haircut from T the Barber last week.
Yeah, we saw that.
We saw that.
It's already. It looks like it already needs to be cut again. I have to tell T he didn't cut it short enough. But I just hope. My prayer in life is that if somebody sees me on the street and wants to tell me something, that they're not going to walk the other way out of fear they're not going to get a response, because they'd be very wrong if that was their assumption.
Yeah, I ran into you at Red 7 Pizza one time, and you had your family. I was like, you know what? He's doing the family thing. I'm going to keep on stepping. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say on that, it's enter at your own risk.
Right.
If you're going to disrupt the 3-year-old, I'm going to send her home with you.
Okay.
You had taken care of my friend. I tell people, I remember when you was going up for the mayor position, and I tell everybody this. I was like, I don't know the man from Adam and Eve, but you had taken care of one of my friends that at a high school reunion. And I'll just never forget the kindness, because he's autistic. He has a high autistic Asperger's. I was on the other side of the field, honestly. He doesn't really like me to be too close, but, I was just there to chaperone. And I just remember it was a group, and it was you and your wife, and it was a group of people. And he was so excited about this event. And he was there, and he was talking. And all of a sudden, everybody just kind of slowly started to turn away. And you were talking too, and the moment I was going to have to go and, I guess, grab my friend and get him out of that hot moment, out of that embarrassing moment, because all of a sudden everybody was just turning their head. You turned around, you tapped my friend on the shoulder, and I don't know what you said, because again, I'm on the other side of the field, so I just saw his face go from really solemn, because he was so excited about this day, to almost like, forget this day, I'm ready to go home, to all right, I'm back having a good time. So that's the first time I ever saw you, met you, and it just, I was like, of course I don't vote because I'm in the hot seat, but if I was like, vote for that man, because obviously from across the room, he's a good guy. So that's what I remember. I don't know if you remember my friend or that moment, but that took care of my friend for like ever. He still that was a highlight of his day. I can't say his name because of, but that was a highlight for him.
I know exactly who you're talking about, and I absolutely remember meeting you that night, and I appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Well, I did want to go back to the Confederate Museum, because I had questions on, is that something that is funded through Columbia? I know you said it's not something that you didn't really want here or to see here.
And that's the, frustrating, or one of the frustrating parts about that conversation is that, people say, well, why did y'all even let it here?
Yeah,
let it come here?
That was my question.
And basically the answer is that museum is on private property. It's privately funded. No funding whatsoever from the city of Columbia. Okay. And there's nothing that a government can do to forbid them from moving forward on that. I mean, if the city of Columbia, which is was approved several years ago, but if the city of Columbia were to have denied it, then you're talking a lawsuit, and a judge would basically overrule the city. So, and again, I went to a Stand Together Fellowship meeting, and we were having a conversation about this museum, and it is obviously one that continues to bring out emotions in ways that I will never understand. And so it almost feels a little bit naive for me to even say, let's turn that negative into a positive, because I fully get it. It's not that easy.
No, it's not.
And so on the other hand, again, to me, it allows us an opportunity to use that as sort of our, competitive edge or competitive spirit, to be like, all right, if they're going to come in our town, then instead of them telling the narrative, we're going to tell the narrative by doing the things that we're doing. So when people come to visit that museum, they're going to see about all the things that the city of Columbia is doing to progress forward. So there's an opportunity for us.
And I do rather see it in the museum versus like on the street. So I guess that's a way to look at it.
That is one way.
I have a question because what you just said was a powerful statement about if they're gonna do that, then let them do their thing. It's private property, and everybody has constitutional rights, and you're supposed to respect those rights. So they can do their thing. It's cool. It's not like we're not used to this type of stuff. But with you speaking about the city of Columbia putting on a different face, putting on a face of showing that we're doing this over here also. That if there are initiatives that are already positive for the community that already have happened from just the initiative of the citizens alone. So like with the rally, how it I got all right, Paco. Right. So let me raise my mic for you, sir. But if there's things that are already happening, that are already good for the community, how easy is it then for the city to sponsor, to back, to promote, to support things that have already happened, regardless of if City Hall knew about it or not? Like, how easy is it to start a support for things like that?
Well, I mean, any type of cultural diversity, initiative or education event, it's going to receive support from the City of Columbia because it's going to have the support of me and from the Vice Mayor and from members of council. So there's your first of all support, and then in terms of organizing, I mean, anytime there's a group that has an event in mind that it wants to put on or promote or wants the assistance of the city, we're always going to be willing to have that conversation.
Well, with that being said, and that's very good to hear. Jay Lee here is an organizer. She helped organize the rally yesterday, but she also is the organizer of the annual Juneteenth celebration. I don't know if you know about Juneteenth, but we do.
I know all about it.
Awesome.
Right.
And I've already got it on my calendar, but it gives me a good opportunity to promote that same day. You may already know this. We're actually dedicating a marker out at Fairview Park that talks about the historical significance of Fairview Park and how it came to be over there. And so, anyway, that's the same day as Juneteenth, and so the City of Columbia is already going to be supporting and promoting that day heavily already. So I'd love to figure out opportunities to sort of do some cross promotion.
That's my part. Just let me know.
Would there be a way to in the future? Because when it comes to and I love cultural diversity and bringing the community together for positivity and all that, but I also like things that make money. So, Juneteenth is set up like vendors that have their business license and they can come out and they just have their own things to sell. So people are able to connect in the community and get more information about history, but also get their own product out there, get their own brand out there. Right. So it's one of those things to where it is very positive and it's already happening. I think this year's the 4th anniversary.
Yeah, it's the 4th annual Juneteenth.
So going into the future when it comes to Columbia being open for business, as you said once before, is that something that on the 5th or the 6th or the 7th that the city can stand behind, like maybe they do Mule Day and be able to promote and bring tourism dollars in for all these hotels that we just put up and all that?
Absolutely.
Cool.
We have
that started. Like, do we just walk up to you and say, "Hey, this is what we need. This is the blueprint"?
I mean, you can do that, and then if you do that, I would take it in stride and get you to the right person.
Okay.
But we have actually a tourism and marketing director in Columbia that this is 95% of what she does is exactly what you just said in terms of the kind of support that's needed. And you're right. The city promotes a lot of events throughout the year, including Mule Day. There's also First Fridays that goes on,
which is really successful.
It is.
Which is, but that has the city footprint on it. And the point is if that has the city footprint on it, then there's no question that the events that you're talking about also needs to and deserves and should have the city footprint on it as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there. I would just tell you to reach out to the tourism director and marketing director. Her information's on the website. She has her own link on the page. And I guarantee you that you will find a very receptive audience and being able to put some of our resources behind that, even if it's just promoting, even if it's just people that follow our pages that see that we're promoting that kind of event.
Yes.
Again, we're not going to make changes in one felled swoop. It's not going to happen overnight, but piece by piece, brick by brick, baby steps, we will make positive change. And that's an example of something easy that can be done with our support.
Well, I love to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
great to hear.
There are a few initiatives that are already. I've been blessed to be a part of a few different things in the city that we just take on our own initiative. Me and Jasmine over here. What was that? 2 years ago, Jazz?
2 years ago.
We did a community garden on the east side. Did a fire pit.
For the love of.
And Jaylee helped us organize it and everything. And on the south side, they have a community garden. What are the steps to get more things like that, like community gardens? You know, like I really, with this COVID and everything, you see more people trying to grow, and with Murray County being a county of that comes from farmers, that comes from people that, you know, have to know the Farmer's Almanac, that type of thing. How can we improve or get more community gardens to where the new generation coming up can take up that same heritage of providing for yourself? Like, can we get more of those?
I think a lot of it goes back to really the power in numbers and the voice and the organization. And if that is a cause that you're passionate about, then it is a cause that you get your fellow-minded folks around that are passionate about community gardens, and you put some organization to it, and then all of a sudden you've got something that can grow into something special. I mean, you know, the city, going to the point about the city government and frustrations and that sort of thing, we don't have the ability to do everything. We don't have the ability to say, okay, we're going to make community gardens our number one initiative, and then make, more playgrounds our number one initiative, or this or that. I mean, there's only so much that we can do, which is why I stress that it's so important. It's the organization and the people that have the ability to do those type of things. And so you come to the table with an idea, with people behind it, then that's really where you're going to see the kind of results that you're talking about. For example, there was a group in town that thinks that Columbia has a litter problem, that there's too much trash on the roads. And so I told that person, I said, okay, find about 7 or 8 people that agree with you, and then I'll create a litter task force. And sure enough, we have a litter task force that has about 12 people on it, and they're putting together some initiatives that they want to see the city council pass that they think will help curb the litter problem. Again, that's an Exhibit A. That is a primary example as to how you can get change done in Columbia. Get a group of people that are passionate about an issue, bring it to the city, and then let us put our stamp behind it and start seeing progress. That's that public-private partnership that, in my view, is so important to meaningful reform in government, because, again, you've got to have the public component in a lot of cases, but unless you have that private component, private being the people, the power is in the people, and that's how you're going to make progress.
So what if, and speaking on the litter thing, what if we smashed 2 ideas together? Think about this. People love doing these 5K marathons and stuff like that. What if we smashed up a 5K marathon, or however long, with a litter pickup, where along the way they do they do the marathon.
I think that'd be great.
And then we could set stations up so far with just, maybe we get the city trucks where we just throw, you know what I'm saying? Just however.
I like it.
Well, I'm over here smiling because running happens to be my hobby.
Right.
And I don't know how many miles you ran today, but I'm just going to go ahead and say I bet I ran more than you did.
Oh, you did? Oh, look at that.
Not to talk smack or anything. I love to run, and having a 5K for anything would be awesome. Plus, it promotes healthy lifestyles and healthy living. But I think I just got you signed up for this litter task force, so you be on the lookout for an email.
No, I'm okay with that. I am okay.
We're both in the hot seat
Would you
now.
run also? Would you run in the 5K? Would you join us?
Well,
Absolutely.
All right.
well, not just a 5K. Maybe it's not just a run. But
Maybe a
run.
jog.
No, just a run where,
I can only walk.
we're also picking up litter. You know what I mean? We combine it to maybe a 5K for
I like
a
it.
clean community,
Yeah, I like
and
it.
we could route it through maybe some of the more severe areas.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Attention to the issue, but I love that idea. Again, you've just self-volunteered for the litter task force, but that seriously, I mean, that's the kind of thing that, the ideas, and that if you bring the ideas to the table, then you start to see, implementation, and that has the ability to bring awareness to the issue, or also bringing some solutions to the issue. And so I love that for sure.
Anytime you can make something positive and fun, the community likes that. A lot of people here feel like we don't have a lot to do. So maybe a lot of, instead of doing a lot of big things, instead of doing 1 or 2 big things a year, we can maybe scale some of these things down and do a lot of little things and space it out more, like your first Fridays, you know what I mean? Maybe we, they got Thirsty Thursdays and stuff, and stuff like that, so.
I do want to ask, because there was just an announcement that I saw before we went live that the court ruled that Tennessee must provide absentee ballots to every eligible voter for all elections in 2020 due to the COVID-19. Is that going to be for local also for the August election? Would they be provided for that? All right.
That is correct. So there's already a law in Tennessee, if you're over 60, if you call in, you're able to get an absentee ballot and vote by mail. But the court ruling now allows anybody that wants to vote by mail can just call in and request their ballot, and they'll be sent a ballot with an absentee ballot. Now, they have to be registered to vote in order for that to happen. So I'll be looking for that. But yes, it's going to be absentee for this upcoming local August election. And, again, I really believe that voting is a crucial issue, that unless people are going to the polls to vote, then some of these protests and important causes that we're seeing are not going to be met with solution. And so if you're going to protest and to stand up for what you think's right, then you've also got to be willing to stand up in the voting booth. Because again, it's representation that we've got to have in order to get meaningful change and progress. And so obviously voting is a very important cause of mine, and I'm going to fight for more access to voting as much as I possibly can. It's hard to believe, but not that long ago we were talking about early voting. And there were a group of people that were against early voting. And now, we know early voting has expanded voting. It gives greater access, and it's sort of a no-brainer. Yeah. So I think there's no question that conversations about how can we increase civic participation need to be had. And I think that falls on our generation. I go back to our generation. Mm-hmm. But generally, those in the 18 to 34-year-old age demographic, which I'm just outside of that, but generally we vote in the least amount. What does that mean? That means our voice is not heard because our groups are not running for office and not in office. But not only that, if our group is not voting, then they don't really care about pleasing us or, hearing our cry. And so the more that we engage in the civic process, that's really the more that we're going to be able to do for the causes that we're supporting, that we're all in agreement on tonight.
All right.
I like that. Now, I know you are big on voting, and it's hard. A lot of times we don't know who to vote for. We don't know who the people are that are running. What are some ways that you guys are getting out there and getting yourselves known to the community outside of voting? Actually, just like you said, you would come and run with us. I think I've seen people show up to Juneteenth maybe one year when it was voting time. I just want to see more activity and more involvement with our councilmen, with our people who are running for certain seats. What do you think is something good that you guys can do to get more involved with your community?
The committee being on the YouTube channel is a good step, but please answer. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your point, I think people are not naive, and those who just show up when it's time for an election, they stick out a little bit more than those who have been showing up for years and years prior to and after an election. Mm-hmm. But from my perspective, if I'm in town, which generally I am, and if there's an event going on in the city of Columbia and I get an invitation to and/or am aware about it, I'm going to be there. And so in some cases, again, it's more about how well you are promoting an event that you might be having.
Right.
Because, if I don't know about it, then that means you're not doing a very good job promoting it, because I'm generally, pretty much hearing about what's happening in town. Right. But on the other hand, that cuts both ways. I mean, we've got to be more proactive. What are we doing to get ourselves out there to where you know how to get in touch with me? Yeah. That if you have something. And so it cuts both ways. I think that people have to do a better job of promoting, but also those of us who are in office and who have that enormous responsibility in elected office have to also take some initiatives, not just in an election year, but in every year.
Yes. Can I ask? Because I have a 7-year-old son, a 1-year-old son. You have 3 children. I think everybody here has kids except light skin sensation.
Devin in the back. He's quiet. Say hi to Chaz, Devin.
How you doing?
But with the city over the last few years, and a lot of this has to do with private ownership, but also I just want your thoughts as a parent. What could we do more for kids' activities, more for just kid things like the mall? We already know is the mall. It is what it is. But
whatever it is.
When it comes to outside of the Boys and Girls Club, are there any ideas or initiatives or just things that you would like to see? We might not be able to get them done right now, but just things that you think would be good for children in the city.
Well, one thing I will say, and unfortunately I didn't really understand this or know this until I became mayor, which probably means we can do a better job of promoting it, but our Parks and Recreation Department actually has a lot of programs throughout the year, but particularly in the summer for youth, whether it be movies at the park or whether it be various camps, athletic sport camps. So there's some things that we're already doing that we could probably do a better job at promoting that would be a overnight sensation, so to speak. But for me, outdoors is important to me. And a lot of our outdoor recreation activities are good. We have a lot of them, but I think we could do more, whether it be expanding our parks. I'd love to see better Duck River access to where people could get in and off kayaks in town without having to go, out in the county or 10, 15 miles away. So really recreational opportunities is what I like to focus on with children, recognizing that there are some important organizations in town, Boys and Girls Club being one that provides some options, but really we could probably be a little bit more diverse in terms of those offerings and also who is offering them. Because to your point, having an almost 10-year-old, an almost 7-year-old, and an almost 4-year-old, we're constantly trying to think of ways. Okay, what are we doing tonight? What's going on in town? Are we going to go downtown, or And so that's another positive of having a father of 3 young children in his office, is that I'm not just thinking about myself and my generation, but I'm thinking about those that are younger. What we can do to sort of build them up to best position them so that when they're old enough to make their decision, they're going to be proud of their town, or they're going to want to move back to their town. Right. As long as one or two of those things are present, then I feel like Columbia has done a success to those young people. Because I don't necessarily, if you don't want to move back to Columbia, that's fine. But I want you to be proud of the town that you were raised in, and that's sort of what we're all working on, is to make people proud of our community.
Right. I like that.
Have you? Well, of course you're the mayor, but there has been a seemingly like a problem with retention of people like of your generation and younger here lately, especially with the tech boom and everything. People trying to go to more major cities where they feel like they'll get different opportunities. What do you think is a way to retain people and to
the graduates in particular?
Yes.
So we're always trying to figure out how to make Columbia a better place to live, work, and raise a family. And those are really the 3 primary ingredients for not just retention, but also for recruitment, because you want a little bit of both. You want to retain who you have, but you also want to bring some new people in. Yes. And I go back to education. Honestly, I think that is probably the primary component of attracting young people, because young people who have children, they want to put their children in an education system that basically puts them on a trajectory for a positive outcome, whether or not that be trade school, or whether or not that be going directly into the workforce, or whether or not that be going to college. That's what parents want, is they want to see their children have more opportunities than maybe they had. And that starts with the education system, which is why I'm such a strong proponent for our school system, and what I want to fight for and advocate for every chance I get.
Awesome.
So let me ask you real quick. So we had touched on like the adult education and things like that. Do you have any advice for us for a way for us to facilitate this somewhere? Maybe any organization we can go through, maybe a government branch, to find some sort of, because that's the problem here. A lot of people have a lot of great ideas in Columbia. We have nowhere to facilitate it on the budgets that we have here. Mm-hmm. So what would you give to me as advice to facilitate something like that?
Well, again, I think frankly, it's doing what you're doing. I mean, you're talking to the mayor on a Sunday night on a podcast and getting that message out there. I mean, I think that's important. I mean, I'm hearing from y'all. I'm hearing your concerns. I'm hearing your interest. That doesn't just stop when I close this computer screen and move about my day. That's something that sticks with me and is part of my conversation for the week ahead. I mean, being able to let the city manager know that I was having a conversation with folks who want to see more opportunities for our children and youth in town. So it may seem sort of cliche, but honestly, you're doing it right now. Okay. The other thing is there's other opportunities. There's leadership Murray that the Murray Alliance puts on. That you apply for it. It's a class. It's about a 12-week class, and you go through it, and you're with people who are young, old, black, white, rich, poor, and right. They're in the community wanting to make a difference. And they make friends, and they talk about things, and they do community initiatives, and there's an opportunity. All you got to do is apply. Now, maybe the question is you got to know about it in order to apply. Maybe that's where it comes back to. We got to do a better job of putting that out there, so that everybody knows about it.
Mayor Molder, me and Paco are both photographers and videographers. We can cut the city some commercials if you need.
Right, what you need.
Okay.
but
I'm thinking maybe in about 3 years we may need to get y'all to cut a little campaign commercial.
You're talking to the right ones. You're talking to the right ones.
I remember that.
Got the right ones.
All right, in 3 years when I slide in your inbox, I'm like, hey, I got my camera ready.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be ready. I'm going to be asking you, have you registered to vote, though? Right. So
I am registered.
We'll do a push.
Making sure I signed up.
Yeah, we'll do a push. We've got things in the making. You'll see. It's coming. We got things in the making. Yeah. So, and we're going to try and better our community ourselves. Is there anything that request that you would make to the people that's listening? Anything that you would like to request from us as the community?
Well, I don't know if it's a request, but let me just say two things. First of all, let me just say that I truly believe that the city of Columbia, for the reasons I mentioned, because of our dark history and because of where we are today with the Confederate Museum and the conversation that brings with it, because of the organization that we have now that you saw yesterday with 400 people downtown, because of the leadership that you now have in city elected office, with including myself and vice mayor and all of our council members that are united in your cause and in the cause and the very important cause that we have in this country, the conversation that's being had, and also the Stand Together Fellowship Group that has been working and laying a foundation for this moment. All of those things position our community to really be a trailblazer in this conversation and to be the example that is set for our country. Mm-hmm. I believe that. I wouldn't just say it unless I believed it, because I recognize anything short of that is going to be a failure. But I believe that in my heart, and I am ready and excited to be the leader in that. Number two, the request would be to continue the momentum. There is a lot of momentum right now. You're seeing elected officials across this country that are willing to step up and to start having some conversations that might not be the easiest conversations, but they weren't willing to have those conversations 6 weeks before today. Yes. They're willing to have them now. Right. And as sure as that momentum is lost, as soon as you quit having these conversations, that's when we're going to be looking back 5 years from now thinking, oh, well, there was some opportunity there that was missed. I think that this is an opportunity that is too important to miss at this moment. Yes. And I don't know where our country may be going. Frankly, I don't know where our state may be headed, but I know that in the city of Columbia, we have the opportunity to drive the train and the train to positive progress on all things that we've been talking about tonight. And so, as I mentioned when I made a post earlier today about yesterday's rally, I don't know what the future holds, but I know last night in the city of Columbia, the future looked a little bit brighter than it did the day before. Right. And I'm excited about tomorrow and about the next day and about the next day after because of this momentum that we have. And I don't want it to stop on my watch. And so I'm just going to ask you to continue doing what you're doing, to pushing me and to pushing all of us on council to not let us become complacent, but to continue to move on in a positive direction.
All right. That's really what we need because, and thank you for being forthcoming with acknowledging the dark history because you have to acknowledge the history before you speak on the present. And And especially
you can't move forward until you know where you come from. And I had an opportunity to go down to Alabama last year with the Standing Together Fellowship Group. Vice Mayor Martin was with me on the trip, along with many others. And one of the biggest, and this will probably be one of the best things in my life, not just during my 4 years of mayor, but forever, was walking across the Selma Bridge hand in hand with Vice Mayor Krista Martin. That is something I will never forget. And so to educate yourselves on that part of the history, and then to recognize as a group that a lot of that was occurring in our own town, is something that was very eye-opening for me. And it helped me understand that, look, unless we can acknowledge what happened and are willing to have conversations and learn from that, then we're doomed to repeat that history. And so I think it's important that you talk about it, even though it might not be easy to always talk.
You got to be a little uncomfortable sometimes to get some results.
It means growth, yeah.
Well, I do want to say before we wrap up that the WhoDat podcast, we've been doing this for about 10 months now.
Right.
Blessing from the Most High. And last year we sponsored an event called Shut Up and Ink. I don't know if you have any tattoos, but it was a great turnout. And I just want to invite you to come out to the next one that we're going to do this year. If you have some tattoos, you'll fit right in. If you don't, it's all right.
If you want one,
I want a tattoo.
Yeah.
Hey, if my wife and 3 kids allow it, then But I got a couple of things that I have to answer to. But regardless, I'll be there. Shoot me an invitation, and I'll be there.
Yeah, the date's sensitive right now due to COVID. We had a date and had to change it.
I tell you, the closest thing to a tattoo I ever had, and my wife still makes fun of me to this day. When I was a kid, I told y'all who my hero was. I had in the back of my hair carved in 23, and I would color it in with a red marker, so I had a red 23. That's not the closest thing to a tattoo I ever had.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope.
Hey, Devin,
he's the greatest of all time.
Yes, say that one more time for Devin in the back. Say that one more time.
He's our sports analyst.
Do not
I hope,
in the mic.
Hey, I hope he's not trying to say LeBron is better, because we're not even.
No, sir. We definitely compare Kobe Bryant to Michael Jordan on being one of the greatest of all time.
Well, I will say this. I would put Kobe at number 2, but like Jordan even said, and actually like Kobe Bryant said, there would be no Kobe Bryant without Michael Jordan, because Kobe modeled his game after Michael Jordan.
Speak them facts.
So
see, that's true, but I'm gonna tell you what. Hold on. My favorite player of all time is Isaiah Thomas, and after sitting up and watching what he had to say about Isaiah Thomas, he lost respect for me. Look at his face. My thing is, it's like if there was no Detroit Bad Boys, there would be no Michael Jordan.
No, favorite player of all time is Isaiah Thomas. I don't think we can be friends, brother.
Wow.
Sorry, brother. I don't really mess with Jordan like that.
He's young, man. He don't know no better.
Right.
All right. Well.
Yeah. He's a 99 baby.
Hey, I want to come on your. You let me know when your show is, and we're going to talk Michael Jordan all thing.
I'm up for that conversation. I'm on your side on that one.
So, what are some tips you can give somebody who's trying to get to where you are right now, like the youth, anybody?
Yeah, somebody wants Paco to be a councilman.
Yeah, they want me to run for councilman.
Process for that?
So first of all, you've got to know. You got to know when elections are. You got to be. You got to be registered to vote. You got to be a voter.
I am.
Those are the easy things.
I do vote.
So that's the easy stuff. You've also, to your point about just showing up during election time, you've got to start now. It may be 2 years before you're ready to run for something. It may be 4 years. But the foundation that you lay now of showing people that you care and establishing relationships and friendships so that when you do decide to run for office, you'll already have a network. That's also very important. But again, when you show up, people take notice. And also know that a good reputation follows you everywhere you go, but a bad reputation will show up before you get there.
Right.
And so, doing things that you would want to see your, elected officials do, and not doing those things that you feel like your elected officials should not be doing. And so, very passionate about this issue too, about more people wanting to run for office, and could talk about this, all day. But whether or not you're an 18-year-old that's just started the workforce and ready to start voting and want to run for office, or whether or not you're 60 years old, I think there's always a place for people to run for elected office. But the time to start was yesterday. To start kind of laying your foundation and creating your friendships, because we definitely need more good people running for office for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I want to thank you very much for giving us this time, especially on a Sunday afternoon, and you being out of town. We appreciate you sitting down with us and understanding and recognizing the moment that we're in, and knowing that people need to hear your voice, get some information, get a little bit of clarity on things, especially locally, that affects us. Anybody want to say anything else real quick? Because I do have one more thing. But
I'm just thankful for information, how to get more involved with promoting the events and, getting connected with you personally. So really appreciate you.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for being here. I'm happy that you came.
Right. I'm going to try and get in touch with you and try and meet with you maybe once a month. Can I get that commitment? Can I meet with you once a month?
Yeah, actually what I was going to say, my email address is just my name at columbiatn.com, so chaz.molder@columbiatn.com, and I'd appreciate, if y'all put the podcast out or whatever, feel free to promote that email address. Again, it's chaz.molder@columbiatn.com, and would again, I answer any email or return any call, and in terms of meeting regularly, would obviously be more than happy to do that. So let's get it set up. But email is the best way to sort of establish the contact, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Awesome. Chaz, I totally appreciate you coming on. I had kind of peeped your swag. I knew you nice, cool, open, and what's the word? Transparent. Yes. Person. So I was very excited about having you on, and I want to thank you for giving the time, and I think the community appreciates that also. Is there anything you want to lead out with before we end the podcast?
I know we have one more question. Hey, I tell you what I am going to do though. I want to take a photo so I can promote on my end what I've been doing on Sunday night. So I want y'all to wave.
Cameras over here. Cameras over here. All right. Over here, guys.
With light skin persuasion.
Mr. Isaiah Thomas in the background. All right, cool.
Yeah. Cool. Well, before we leave off, I have to mention this because my heart won't sit right with me if I don't. Last year, Trevor Armstrong was murdered, and it's still an unsolved case. And I don't know what proper channels to go through. I don't know exactly who to call, but I have the mayor sitting in front of me, so I'm just going to do it. This was a very precious and special person to the community. His last name is Armstrong, so you know that they're related to 3/4 of the state. But he was a very sweet and nice young man who meant a lot to a lot of people. And his murder was a tragedy. But it's unsolved, and a lot of his family members are my friends, and they don't have answers, let alone justice. So I just wanted to put that out. I don't know who you can talk to about it. I don't know about the hierarchy of things like that, but I think that his case deserves a look. So I just wanted to say that.
I'm not familiar with it, but I wrote the name down, and let me see what I can find out.
That's all I needed, man. I thank you, man.
Right.
Thank you.
Hey, listeners, can we get the hearts for Chaz?
Yes,
Get the loves.
Come on, guys.
Yeah, someone click the hearts here, yo. Show them the love.
All right. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be talking very soon. I appreciate you taking this time out, truly, from the bottom of my
This
heart.
was cool. I feel honored.
All right.
Have a good night.
All right.
Yeah, when he said he had to do the show, I was so surprised.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the show, I was like, what?
Hey, just remember, a good reputation follows you everywhere. It's a bad one that gets up before we get there, so keep that in mind, too.
Right.
Absolutely.
Correct. It definitely be both ways with this show. Right. I don't know.
Hey, I threw that softball. I was ready for somebody to hit it. So I did. See y'all later.
All right.
All right, bye.
And for all the new listeners that's checking out, go to the WhoDat podcast page. And subscribe, like it, follow us. We have merchandise, everything like
Love
that.
to the family. Enjoy. Happy birthday to the kids and the wife.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, happy birthday. We forgot about that. Birthday.
Today's his birthday?
I'll let know.
His wife.
Oh, his wife's birthday? Oh, okay.
Busy month for them.
He's not listening.
Right. No, my bad. I've got a lot on my mind. It's a big head, man.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Yes, so, yeah, all the listeners, everybody, thank you for, look, we double monitored it now. Oh.
I'm sexy from both angles.
I'm gonna just 86 myself out of it.
Don't be saying.
Yeah, anyway, back in control here. So,
All right, Captain.
yeah. Thank Jay Lee for coming on.
Man,
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you for having me.
And Jasmine.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, T Talks is to follow, so
I'm about to run.
yeah.
T-Talks, tune in.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thanks everybody for coming in and joining us and listening to Chaz. And we're gonna be doing a lot more things like this. We have a movement that we're gonna do, and it's gonna essentially help the community. Help minorities in the community also. Mentorships, trades, things like that. If you're interested, please contact us via the page. Okay, contact us and let us know that, hey, I'm a plumber. I wouldn't mind doing an apprenticeship for these people. Or I'm
HVAC, barbers,
Right.
salons,
all that stuff.
mechanics, photographers.
Right. We are also looking to a place to facilitate these activities. So if we could get that, let us know. You got any leads on anything?
If you own anything,
Right.
hit us up.
You want, us to do better. We want to better ourselves. So that's what we're working on.
Yes.
So anything else before we dip?
Be blessed. Don't stress. Life's just a test.
All right.
Amen to that.
WhoDat?
I'm lame. I'm so lame for saying that every time.
Love you.